Okay everyone, to start our pictures, you need to start with a couple pieces of paper. You're going to choose a color for your background. Any color will be fine as long as it's a color from the rainbow. And then you're going to choose 4 different layers of smaller pieces of paper. They look kind of like this, much smaller than our background. So the 4 colors that you'll need are the 4 layers of colors starting from dark to light. So you'll need black, you'll need a dark gray, a light gray, and a white. So these are the 4 papers that you'll need to start. So on these color shades from dark to light papers, you're going to start to draw the layers of your space for your picture, for your fantasy picture. So these layers can be anything you want. You can draw some hills like I did here. You can draw some mountains. You can draw some houses or buildings, some trees. So think about what would be in an outside scene of space. It could be anything. So once I've drawn these shapes down, I'm going to start to cut them out. So I'll start here with my black paper, and I'm going to start to cut out my hills. I can cut out my hills separately, or I can just stay together in one line and cut the hills out all together like this. So I've cut out my first layer. I'm not going to do any gluing yet. I need to cut out all my layers first. My next layer is going to be my mountains. So I'll start to cut out my gray mountains. That's my next layer. And again, I can cut these mountains out separately, or I can just keep them all together in one line like this. Okay, my houses are going to be kind of tricky because I drew all my houses separately. So I'm going to just cut them out one by one at a time, each house separately. So once I get all my shapes cut out, I'm just going to keep them in a nice little pile here. And at the end of class, if you don't get to glue them all, you can put them in a little bag for next time, so we can keep them all together. Okay, I've cut some of my houses out. I haven't cut them all out. I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to go on to my next layer, which is my trees. I kind of put my trees together with the ground, so I'm just going to cut them out together as one line. So you just started at the edge, and I'm just going to go around the tree and cut these out, and then just keep going along this line here. I don't have to cut out everything in a separate shape. I can cut them out in one layer all together. Okay, so I've got my last layer cut out here. Looks pretty good. So now, once I've cut out all my layers, I can start gluing my layers down. Remember the rule of space though, objects start dark and they get lighter. So because we're gonna layer these, I'm gonna start with my lightest layer actually and glue that in the middle first and then go down from there. So what I'm gonna do is I can just take my pencil and mark off where I think half my paper is, and that's where my lightest layer will go. We need some area for the sky, so don't glue it all the way up here. Okay, I'm just gonna take a little line of glue, or you can just do a couple dots. I don't wanna see any big globs on here. Then flip it over and glue it right in the middle on that line there. Make sure everything's nice and flat. If you have any pieces sticking up a little bit, just put another little dot underneath. Okay, so I've got my lightest layer, then I'm gonna move on to my light gray. That would be the next layer. So because I cut out my houses separately, I'll have to glue each of these down one by one together here. Now I have a whole bunch of space here, so that's where my other houses will go. I don't want to have huge spaces here, so I might need to cut out some smaller houses to put them so that it's a whole layer all together. Okay, I'll glue those down. Then my next layer would be my dark gray. So I'm going to overlap a little bit. I'm not going to put it down here. I can just kind of overlap on the houses a little bit. And then my last layer should be the black. I should overlap a little bit. So not all the way down here, just a little overlap. That means on top of the next layer. So once these are all glued down, if I have a little piece of blue sticking off here, I'll just trim that off. So I just have my layers. Now, in the background, it's our job to think about, in the sky, we're gonna put something fantasy-like, because this all looks very realistic, these layers of space, but we wanna kind of stick to that style of Carol Wyatt and do something more kind of crazy and out there and fantasy-like. So that's where I'm gonna pick my black paper again, and I'm gonna draw something that can be in the sky or on one of my layers that is kind of funny. So in my example, I drew kind of like an alien spaceship in the sky. So I'm gonna draw whatever that shape will be. I'm gonna be creative with how my shape looks. And I can even get some oil pastels and add some color to this if I like. And then I'm gonna cut this out. Okay, so my alien spaceship is gonna be flying through the sky. That's my fantasy part of this picture. And now it's up to me to decide what kind of details do I want to put into this picture. So I'm going to use my oil pastels or my pencils or my chalk, whatever coloring supplies I like, and I'm going to add a few little details to this. So on the houses, look at the houses. I can add some windows to the houses, or maybe some lines on the rooftops. Maybe in the sky I can add some lines of the spaceship going throughout the sky, or maybe like a bright moon in the sky. I can get some white and color that in. I can add some texture for some rough tree leaves and bark on the tree. I can add maybe some animals or people on the hills here. So I'm gonna start to add some details to this. Once I think I've added some details to this and it looks like a complete picture, then I am done with my project.